What is up, grinders? Welcome to another episode of the MMA Crunch Time, right before lock here on a Saturday evening. Blender, it's an interesting card. 12 fights, not enough for you. We know. We'll stop the semantics of it not being 15, but got a little bit of everything. No heavyweights, nothing too ugly on the women's MMA front, but there are some pay-up spots. And then other than that, most fights are pretty close on this one.
I think that makes up for the fact there's only 12 fights.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like 12 fight cards where we get multiple 5-1 type of favorites. So the constructions, you have a lot more choices of combinations that may not be as duplicated. I think there'll be some very popular constructions that maybe you would avoid a little bit more. But once you get away from the popular constructions, you go in a multitude of ways and still get, lineups that are under 5 dupes. I'm playing 50 lineups in large field. I'm playing 3 single entry, 3 max type of lineups. And I mean, from a construction standpoint, Suarez, Sandhagen, Carantillo,
Yep. Cash, that's
all
cash
3.
roll.
I mean, to me, I maxed 1. So I'm not playing more than 1 in any lineup, but you could possibly get away with 2. Just maybe you don't throw in Diego Lopez into that type of lineup. But yeah, it's gonna be very condensed on what the lineup constructions will look like. I think going down the middle more, maybe only playing 1 9K level fighter, that may put you on the little off beaten path.
Doesn't it seem like week after week we have a middle range fight that just continues to be that action spot that's, each guy's plus 150 inside the distance or better? And I feel like, that seems to be a starting point. Like if that fight busts, you're killing off a lot of ownership, but it's like these Diego Lopez types fighters are on every single slate now, Blender.
Well, I mean, I think people are overvaluing. I mean, my attitude on this card, there's a bunch of question marks.
Yeah.
And my attitude when it comes to question marks is that when question marks mean higher variance, I tend to side with where the field is not going. So Diego Lopez looked great against Evloev, lost, but looked great. But before that, no one knew who this guy was. It's not like it's like this up and coming prospect people are talking about. And then Gavin Tucker's coming off like a 2.5 year layoff. He's 37 years old.
He's got a beard. I mean, he grew that thing out. Like it's gray. He's looking long in the tooth, but he was a fantasy god and sneaky fantasy god before his break. So it's like, I like these spots because you see the fighter shooting up, right? Oh, recency bias. And then you have a fighter who's been established. That's, I guess, a gatekeeper. And
but he could also be washed. I mean, the thing is that he could also be washed. And also Lopez, on the other hand, Lopez is very finish dependent for 100+ points because we've seen it. We saw in his last fight. He doesn't mind playing off his back. He seems to go for a lot of submissions and doesn't necessarily go for like ground and pound.
Which is great because you get that top position. There's a couple fights we'll talk about on this slate, though, Blender, that people.
Well, you want to talk about the other one that's very similar, probably Harris Wells?
Yeah, I mean, I think they might just stand in Bang. That's the problem. I thought you were going to pivot towards the Billy Q and Damon Jackson. Because
that was the third one. I was going to. Okay, you want to do that first?
Well, I would put the Gavin Tucker and Lopez and the Billy Q and Damon Jackson in the same boat. Reason being, I could see either of the two guys, like Lopez and Jackson, try to play from bottom. All right. And we see that spot where there's control time from top. There's the pitter patter. I expect both guys, if they get top position, to try to finish. Right. Whereas, you have these grapplers that just wait and try to grab a hold of something. There's a lot of grapplers here that are going to go for something. So you actually think the Harris fight?
Well, no. I mean, I'm looking at it from a perspective of obviously you always have fight IQ concerns.
Yeah.
In a fight with Wells versus Harris, I mean, to me it seems like, I mean, I wouldn't want to stand and trade with Jeremiah Wells. I mean, I know Wells is a BJJ black belt. He does have a ground game, but like not necessarily defensively, a little bit more offensively. I think it's more likely that if he was smart, Harris would close the distance, clinch a lot, and not want to punch in the open with the power of Jeremiah
Oh, yeah.
Wells. I think
First round.
Yeah, but I think the same thing with Damon Jackson. I don't think necessarily Carantillo wrestle. I mean, he doesn't mind going for the takedown against like one-dimensional strikers, and he has the advantage there. But I think Damon Jackson's chin and is his suspect. I think it's more like Carantillo would want to keep the fight on their feet, and Damon Jackson's the one that's going to be going for the takedowns. So, to me, I look at them as kind of like binary. I mean, if everyone plans the way they should plan, like to me, Jeremiah Wells, I have as one of the most over-owned fighters on the slate, and kind of barring a first round knockout, I mean, it's hard to see him like necessarily scoring 100 points unless he offensively wrestles. But I'm not sure if that's the path that he would take against Carlston Harris.
That's exactly the same thing I'm thinking. It's like 8,500 is just enough salary that, a second or third round might not be enough, and a decision certainly won't get you there. I do like Harris on this slate, 77. Like you said, he's got a couple knockdowns. I think the pace of that fight, like you mentioned, is going to be there in that spot. I just think that the context, we talk about the two grappling situations with Billy Q historically being the grappler, and then, with that middle range fight, the Lopez and Tucker, maybe it's one punch that ends up being a kickboxing match. I mean, we have the queen. We have Tatiana Suarez on this slate, Blender. How are you going to handle that fight? Because I think my decision making, unfortunately, is coming down to Sandhagen versus Suarez. You can get both of them in, but then you really have to make a decision what you're going to do with your lineups.
Well, I mean, once you plug in Suarez and Sandhagen, there's only so many combinations of the rest of the fighters that you're going to see a lot. I mean, I have Sandhagen at 49% projected owned, Suarez at 45, the two highest owned. I mean, unless you want a multiple 20 plus, 50 plus, whatever way split up top, unless you're leaving, like I could see doing Suarez Sandhagen and then also leaving $800 plus in salary. Yep. Like if you want to do that, I'm just avoiding the combo altogether. I'm just like, I'm not playing Suarez. I'm not and Sandhagen together. I have more Suarez than Sandhagen. Because I mean, if Sandhagen doesn't wrestle against Rob Font, I mean, 5-round decision win made 92 points or something. I mean, it should be a higher volume affair, but I mean, Rob Font isn't all that durable anymore. And I think Sandhagen is going to be more owned than Suarez. People don't like the women's fighters. They don't like, 3-round fights compared to 5-round fights. I think Jessica Andrade is a name that people go, should this fight be that wide? I think it should be. But I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Andrade knocked Tatiana Suarez out, but I think that's pretty much her only path to victory.
Yeah, it really does seem like that's the only thing. And I've seen people say, oh, Tatiana didn't look good in her first fight. For fantasy-wise, Blender, 100 points, that's fine, right? Like, we're happy if she continues to get that output of the control time. Not a huge amount of strikes in that spot, but it was strictly grappling with multiple takedowns in that comeback fight since 2019. But yeah, I want to play Rob Font because there's a salary relief to it, but like you said, the durability is the real issue here. And
a lot of people are going to do that anyway. The thing is that Rob Font is appealing because in a 5-round decision loss,
yes,
he could put up 70 points. I mean, he actually could put up 70 points. If this slate was a lot of heavy favorites, I'd be more inclined to say, hey, Font in a loss, 6,900. That could be optimal. But I mean, there's so many pick'em level fights. I mean, Kyler Phillips, 9K, 72K. I mean, that's not even a 2-to-1 fight. The Carantillo Jackson fight isn't even a 2-to-1. The Hadley is just barely over 2-to-1. We could see multiple underdogs win. And if multiple underdogs win, Font's loss, 70-point loss, doesn't mean anything. So I think people will be more inclined to play Font for that purpose. But plus 700 is the latest. I mean, here's the worst ITD line on the entire slate. So
yeah,
I have him as at 27% projected owned. I have him as over owned.
Yeah, I mean, it's like plus 120 earlier in the week. I don't have it in front of me to go to a decision. So that's what you're paying for, 70 to 80 points if he gets 200 significant strikes or something crazy like that, right?
I'm not even sure if that happens.
Exactly. I mean, there could be wrestling. There's stall ability that Sandhagen actually wrestles or clinches against the cage. But there's one guy nobody's going to click, Blender, and I want to know your opinion on
It's probably someone that I'm clicking. It's a guy that I'm clicking.
Poor Sean Woodson. The guy's on his like fifth opponent, and I think Bazookian's going to be popular. I mean,
I disagree with that.
I mean, he makes sense. People are going to attack the problem is the price of the fight now is not correct, right? Like Woodson's 96. What do they usually come to? 16-2, I think, is what the average of the two fighters combined.
Right.
So, yeah. Tell me how you're handling Woodson, because I mean, a first round finish, if he can find it, a quick win, anything like that, you'd be thrilled. Nobody's going to want to click him. I worry about stall ability though, and I mean, I don't even think
worry about. You're not playing for like, well, if he gets 87 points, I mean, obviously the way that Woodson fights, he's a one-dimensional striker, right? He's facing a guy that's never been knocked out. Yes, he's coming in on short notice. He missed weight, right? He's not like a high-level prospect at all, right? People will play Bazooka or whatever, however you pronounce Bazooka. That's how you pronounce it. I have him at 15% projected owned. He's fine. He's there, right? He has win. To me, I view this as he has win equity, but at 7,500, he has, I think, a lower ceiling than some of these other fighters. And Woodson, to me, is purely his round one odds are plus 500. His inside the distance odds are plus 160. So that's 17% for the first round, 38% in the entire fight. Now, this fight most probably goes the distance. And most probably Woodson scores 80 points. Like that is the most probable. But if you tell me that 17% of the time he wins in the first round, which is, pretty much 100 plus, it may still not even be enough, right? He can score 100 and still not even be enough on this slate. For his ownership to be only 10, 12% owned, the leverage is there. It's purely a leverage. Woodson should be priced. If we reprice the fights, Woodson would be priced at around like 8,700 or 8,800. So he's way overpriced, and he has no equity as far as wrestling or anything like that. You're purely playing for the guy comes in and 38 seconds gets starched or something, and
a deep first round would work too, Blender. Yes. This guy's got volume, okay? So he could get you 50 significant strikes, a knockdown. Like there's two paths in that first round that he can score.
Right,
well.
but it's this. I just want to make it clear.
It's even more.
Is this. The thing is that the likelihood is this, but the ownership is a little bit lower than that. So if you play large field GPPs, I mean, I do have Woodson. And I can say the same thing with Bomb Mondays. I mean, Bomb Mondays being 500 cheaper and a better money line favorite, less ITD line. But, I mean, Bomb Mondays, he's going to tower over Ludovic Klein.
He towers over everybody.
Right.
I don't know how he makes weight, but he's strictly volume-based with that equity of finish.
Right, but I view it the same way as I view Woodson and Bomb Mondays about the same. And, in fact, I would prefer Bob Mondays at 9,100 only because he's 500 cheaper. But you're in the same boat there. The most probable outcome for that fight is a third round win or a decision. And Bob Mondays scores 78 points or 80 points or something like that. That's the most probable. But yeah, you have to see that, if he's only going to be 19, 20% owned, it's one of those things that it's less probable. But the ownership is, he's a little under owned.
You're comparing sizes again, Blender. Come on.
No, I have to
they're big. Both of those guys are big boys. They like you said, they tower over. They should just continually jab, and get a million significant strikes. But let me tell you what I do like is I like when you have to make decisions on a price range. Like I like, I don't love, but I like starting a lineup with like Kimura and Bazooka, right? They're both set the same price tag. Somehow, psychologically, Blender, long term, I've been attacking this for actually years. The people don't like this to click the same price. I don't know.
Well, if it fits in the rest of your lineup, why wouldn't they do it? I don't think people click and go, "Oh, let me start my lineups with Kimura and Bazooka." What do you think? Let's talk. We talked about the Woodson fight because that's going to be a low-owned fight.
Yeah,
how about the Bozer Kimura fight?
Ugly, right? It's ugly good. It's a car crash ugly.
No. It's ugly bad. Most probably, but it could be ugly good. This is one of those fights where all things point to this being really sloppy, slow, and it goes to decision, and the winner scores 54 points. I mean, like, that is the most probable outcome. But Bozer has not looked good moving down to light heavyweight. Kimura hasn't been around. I mean, he's been gone for God knows how long. He doesn't. I mean, he's bad. He's bad. These fighters are bad. I think Tanner Bozer, I mean, he's plus 160 inside the distance. Kimura's plus 300. You pretty much got the first round. It's light heavyweight with two bad fighters. So these guys are more likely to make mistakes. I mean,
unless Kimura comes in and grapples. Bozer can't stop takedowns. His takedown defense isn't the worst.
Good anyway. So
but and he doesn't have fight IQ. You and I talk about it every single week. We should just have a little recording. No fight IQ. Right? Like,
I don't think either of them do.
Yeah, but he's younger. He should go for the takedown. It's like, dude, it's your path of victory.
Who knows? I mean, Bozer's not. I mean, when he was fighting at heavyweight, he I mean, obviously he was faster than some of the guys, so that was a little bit of his strength. Now that he's down to 205, that doesn't really mean much anymore. But I mean, this is just a fight between really like two bad fighters. And in those fights, it either is you take a bathroom break or something screwed up happens and someone scores 110 points. The field is going away from this fight because most probably it's the boring end of it. I'm over the field on both fighters.
I figured you would want to take a shot on both, but I also thought maybe you'd like Bozer a little bit more because of the ownership. I mean, people are going to go to the Hadleys, the Quarantillos. I'm really interested to hear what you think on the Almabayev and Osborne, but I don't want to go there yet. I want to go to one that everyone's going to have a piece of Durden or Hadley. I mean, starting my lineups, I'm thinking to myself, Cody Durden last time out, 130 points. There's a bunch of bias there now. He's a wrestler at heart, but damn, does he get finished in the first round, Blender. He can get starched in the first round. I don't know if the ownership's going to be where it says it's going to be on this fight. What are you thinking on this overall?
Well, because I have Durden at 26% projected owned, and I have Hadley at 28. Hadley's one of my most exposed fighters on the slate at 8,800 because minus 119 inside the distance. Cody Durden's only plus 600 inside the. Cody Durden's ceiling primarily comes from like wrestling, right? The thing is that do you really think Durden wins a 30-27 wrestling like affair? And also Hadley, on the other hand, in the UFC, I mean, he's only attempted one takedown, but pre-UFC, like Hadley's not a striker. Hadley can actually wrestle. So I wouldn't be shocked if, typically, the way Durden loses, he goes for a takedown, guillotine, and he's dead.
Yep.
Right.
That's exactly what I thought too.
This could be a takedown attempt and then a reverse into a Darce choke and he's dead. I mean, it's not like Hadley. Durden has been beating kind of like non-wrestler types. And although Hadley has not been, actively wrestling in the UFC, he hasn't needed to. So here, I mean, I don't think Durden has that dramatic of a wrestling advantage over Hadley. And if that's the case, if he wins a 29-28 decision with 3 takedowns or whatever, Durden could score 90 points or something. But I mean, his ceiling outcomes really come in when he dominates.
There's a possibility where your favorite and my favorite, where they just Hadley loses the first, gets controlled by Durden, and then Hadley stalls him out in the second, third round, flip a coin, whoever has a better gas tank.
I don't think Durden makes it to the third round.
just because of the age, the
Because of the
volume, the
gas tank. I mean,
wrestling. Yeah,
Durden's going to go balls to the wall in the first round, and if he doesn't get a takedown, he's screwed.
makes sense to me. This show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. If you're in a legal sports betting state, take advantage of their awesome bonus offer. If you're in Tennessee, Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, then you can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets. Those of you in Virginia, West Virginia, Indiana, Illinois, and all other legal sports betting states, you can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Terms and conditions do apply. Blender, they're making my ad read go longer with these terms and conditions, but listen, I would be using some of these live bets on, or I would use these towards live bets. And like you said, the people that start gassing out in fights, and one fight that I think could gas out and probably will gas out, I like the pivot here. Ronnie Barcelos and Kyler Phillips. That is ugly. That's
the deal. Do you like it from which side do you like it? I like it from the Barcelos
I like
side.
Barcelos side because he probably has first round equity. I think that Phillips is a little bit of a front runner, has to have success early. He shows a ton of grappling, right? But now he's facing a Brazilian wrestling champion. He's facing a guy that packs a power punch. Phillips doesn't look the best in some of his wins. I mean, going to the third round against Rojo and Paiva, almost everybody he's faced is out of the UFC.
Well, I mean, you also have to consider, like, Ronnie Barcelos is declining.
Yes, yeah.
Sure. But also Kyler Phillips got a PED suspension. He's been gone for God knows how long also.
He doesn't look good. Did you see
right? So, like, I mean, that's what I'm saying. A lot of these fights are like, this guy hasn't fought in 2.5 years. Who the hell knows? Right? This guy is, okay, he had an injury problem the last fight. Like, that's what these fight night kind of cards are, right? It's in Nashville. It's going to be an entertaining card, I think. But yeah, I side with using Barcelos as a cheap.
It's scary because, like you said,
the whole slate is scary. The whole goddamn slate is scary. What are you kidding me?
He's so long in the tooth, but he has first round equity and.
He has submission equity no matter what. If Phillips goes to grapple, I mean, there's no reason why Barcelos can't submit him. I mean, yeah, I don't think that's a probable outcome, but
we're 10 minutes out. No news is good news on this injury front or pullouts. Nothing's happened. I'm keeping an eye on that front.
Right. Mr. Greg and Mr. Gerg in chat has talked about Ode because we haven't mentioned his name.
So
I have much more Almabayev than to me. Ode. If you fade out, dude, I said this last week with Derek Lewis.
Yeah, me too. Right? We both did.
Right. Like, you just fade Derek Lewis every slate, you come out ahead, and I'm still ahead. Okay? Because remember, on the slate that I won $117,000 was a Derek Lewis slate. Okay? That was the Gone Lewis fight. So I'm way ahead, even though Lewis got the quick win bonus. I only had one lineup at a 20 or whatever. Ode Osborne, I think, is the same thing. It's kind of like, you got 5 minutes, get a knockout. Yep. Maybe Yasu Almabayev, making his debut isn't the real deal. And
he needs to hit him with a flying knee as he's coming in for a takedown. That's his path. Like, he is so slow. And I thought you and I would talk about that. That Derek Lewis, you don't know how people are going to fight. He comes up with a flying knee. Would
you ever expect Derek Lewis to start a fight with a flying knee?
But you know what?
Or ever have a flying knee.
That shows how brilliant he is. I mean, he's not brilliant because usually it's like 14 minutes. He's like, all right, time to go, and then goes and knocks the guy out. Amazing, really. And he killed off everybody's ownership on, Lima. But I think that dude, this Almabayev guy is a huge unknown. Like, probably one of the biggest X factors, because if he does wrestle and like have success cooking Ode,
he could score 1 million points. That's why I like him.
125. There's multiple takedowns, multiple. I don't even know, like reverses. If Ode even gets on top, like, I think there's a lot of fantasy upside here. Make sure you guys are smashing the like button on this video. And, there's one fight that I think is going to be super, super interesting. Jacoby and Chuku. I'm fading because it's the upper weight class. I think it's going to be a kickboxing match. Jacoby's fights end up being kickboxing, but Nchuku is kind of evolving here, Blender. Maybe not a wrestler, but isn't it going to be smart to kind of close that distance and don't get hit by Jacoby? Because Jacoby hits hard, and Chukwu's been suspect in the chin, man. He's been hit by some
Jacoby
stuff
has.
in
How
close.
about Jacoby?
Wow. He by who? But maybe takedowns.
Not hurt.
Has he been finished since his comeback? I don't think he has. I think he's just been. No, he's Jacoby's only been taken down, and that's been his Achilles heel from that Mirzakhanov. So, I mean, I think
I'm not a big fan of this fight. I'm very low on Jacoby because his fighting style, like and Justin Jacoby typically has good fight IQ. Like, basically, like he's a much better boxer than. I mean, Kennedy is going to have the reach advantage, but Jacoby stays away, leg kick, and then Jacoby may even go down and then secure around with the takedown. I mean, outside of a knockout, he's plus 350 inside the distance. Like, outside of a knockout, it's hard for him to score well. I think.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Right. I mean, Kennedy is in the same boat, but from an ownership perspective, in that range, he's actually going to make him less owned. Because you have Wells there, you have Lopez there, right? Almabayev will be a little owned. So I in Jukwu, based on an aggregate of 27% projected owned, but I could see him actually being like more like 23 or 24. I'm not a big fan of Kennedy and Jukwu. I'm not an Njukwu guy.
No.
But
he's lengthy. I mean, he could catch a submission like a standing guillotine of whatever, like that's probably how he gets there in a first round, right? Like,
but I mean, Njoku, he could win a 30-27 and still get 100 points depending on how he fights.
Yeah, he can. I can't deny that. I mean, he did that against a kickboxer in Robertson, and it's almost like the same type of mold with Jacoby. I just think Jacoby's a little bit more well-rounded, which means I probably don't want a piece of that fight. How are you ranking those? Like, what's your favorite fight? Like, first three is the wrestlers? I mean, are you starting there, or are you?
I mean, based on my exposure, my highest exposed fight is it's between like Lopez Tucker and Carantillo Jackson, and I have way more Jackson than Carantillo than Billy Q.
He's a great leverage. He's probably, I would argue he's the best leverage because there's so much bias towards Billy and his wrestling ability, and everybody loves him. He's an easy click.
The surprising thing is what my least exposed fight is, and I'm not saying that I suggest for you to do it.
Don't you dare say the main event.
No, it's not, and it's actually not.
It's Suarez and Andrade.
No, I have a ton of Suarez.
Oh, okay.
I have Jeremiah Wells as the most over-owned fighter on the slate. I have Carlston Harris at about efficiently owned. So in general, like I have in my 50 lineups, I mean, I can't pull it up now, but like I got like 5% Wells and like 12% Harris. But that is a fight that could absolutely burn me. But it could also be a fight where Harris that gets takedowns in the first round, stalls, and then gets knocked out in the second round. And Wells is sitting there with like 80 points, 82 points, and it ain't good enough.
No, that's true. It's like a top 3 fight on the slate. And
yeah, but I mean, your asshole is going to be for that first 5 rounds. If you don't have that fight, you're going to just be like this.
Puckered.
Right, but if it doesn't happen in the first round and Harris doesn't have any takedowns, you're feeling pretty good after that if you don't have that fight.
You know how I'm going to be puckered is when Almabayev shoots in for a takedown on the first fight of the night and he gets flying kneed by Ode Osborne, and 7,600 is 110 points. That's what's going to happen to me.
I'm waiting for the Woodson quick win bonus and then the tweets that say DraftKings knew, even though they didn't, because he's mispriced. He was priced against Butler and not against Bazooka.
Yeah, exactly. Next week, we end up having Luque versus Dos Anjos. Actually, a sneaky fun card. Another one. Not a huge names or anything, but I think there's going to be some huge scores next week, Blender. And then there's UFC in Boston 291. So we've got a great schedule.
Are you going to the Boston one? You going?
I'll be there. Of course I will.
You got a ticket for me?
Ticket for producer Rob will take care of you. You know that.
You know how expensive UFC tickets are?
For Boston, minimum pay-per-view is like 500
It's
plus.
ridiculous.
It's like the third, fourth tier. It's like unbelievable. But regardless, another great show. No late news. Don't come on the air again and go, we have some late breaking news, guys. But listen, for Blender, for producer Rob, for myself, we're out of here.